going back to mother's milk, and you're dealing in carbon and nitrogen. If you're looking at these two factors, even though the air has a lot of nitrogen in it, nitrogen is on the acidic side. These are the proteins, the amino acid side of life. The carbon, of course, is the energetic side of life. So we burn carbon in our cars and stuff. There are nitrogen cars, but dangerous. But there are carbon. And carbon is fuel. You burn it for energy. You get your mono, dis, and triphosphates from that. These are energetic principles for the cell to use, that gives energy to different aspects of the body and stuff. Cellular. So when you take a look at mother's milk, you're roughly 7.5% carbon, which is energy, which is sugar. Sugar. Carbon. Carbohydrates. Sugar. That's your fruits, your berries, your melons, and your vegetables. Now, when we complex these simple carbons, we're into starch, we're into dyes and polys, because these other foods are simple sugars. When we're into nature, we're into the simplicity of things. When we're into farming and things, we, for some reason, complex things. So we've created grains and things like this, which is complex carbons, sugars. So that was that funny about the medical doctor that told this client of ours that you can't have the fruit. The fruit's way too much sugar. It'll destroy your pancreas and all this. And it's like, let me throw up a minute. But you can have bread. Really? What's the first sign that I don't know what I'm talking about? So, and you have less than 1% nitrogen. When you understand this, and you take a look at this as a chemist, and as a chemist, if you guys are chemists about it, take a look at this. You know how everything is yin-yang, positive, negative, and everything looks like there's equal amounts of protons to electrons? I don't think so. I think we're more on this. I think we wobble more. I think because that if you looked at a world 50-50, 50% acidic, 50% alkaline, I don't believe life would be fun or supportable there. That's like for every happy day, you have a bad day. So like, I'm happy today, tomorrow's going to be a killer. Next day happy, next day killer. Next day have too much unhappiness, even at 50-50. So when you take a look at chemistry and you look at the amount of electrons and all this, I really believe that we're more orbiting in more of a, not a perfect circle, put it that way. But it's just, goes on in magnetics and stuff, and I don't know. But it's enough to say your fruits and your berries and your melons, but particularly your fruits and your berries. They by far hold the bulk of the proper nutrition for man of any food on the planet, by bar none. It's perfectly suited electrically for man's high electrical system. It's suited perfectly with amino acids because we are gorillas, but we're not gorillas, and we're not elephants, and we're not horses. So we don't have huge muscle factors. So we don't use the aminos that much. So that, of course, acidifies things. So to keep that balance, you've got 7.5% carbon versus less than about 0.9% nitrogen. And then in the middle, you have the lipid panel, which protects and balances out, protects the acid side, the body from the acid side. So then you're bringing in the hydrogen and other factors. Now you're getting a little more of hydrogen and carbons and things like this. You're moving. Suppose when you look at the three, and you look at the three aspects of the body, you've got the blood, which is the nutritional side, but what about the lipid side? You wouldn't want to dump a bunch of lipids in the blood, right? Right. So where do lipids go? To the gallbladder. Now, why? They hydrolyze, right? Now, where does that go from there? Cholesterol's the lymphatic system, guys. That's the lymphatic tissues. So the gallbladder is more of a, if you wanted to call it loosely, a digestive organ for the lymphatic system. You could, basically. But we recommend that you breastfeed 6 months. I think 6 months is adequate myself. You can go a year, and that's fine. But start adding in fruit juices about 3 months. Thin them up with a little water, fresh made. I mean, we're talking about formulas. We're talking about eating things that are not fresh. And yet we're electrical beings. Everything is electrical. So humans are just losing all their electricity for the types of foods that they're eating. It's robbing the electrolytes. It's dehydrating them. It's taking the energy to deal with them. It is so acidic. It's agglomerated that the bodies, people have lost their kidneys. Their sewer systems are so backed up. People stink. Their lymph nodes are swollen. Their cells are chewed up. They stink inside. So the first order of the day when you have an infant is obviously breastfeeding. But what's going to be the first order before that? Hopefully before you realized you were going to conceive and have a child, you took some time to get yourself healthy, because you don't want to pass your genetics or mama's the lymph system. Get your lymph system straightened up before you pass it. What's another thing you really want to think about, mamas, before you conceive and have children? Or if you're carrying your child, you might want to think about this one. Parathyroid, pituitary. If you're real short and you've had depression, menses problems, you want to work on your endocrine glands. Even if you're carrying the baby. Because these herbs are basically more fruits and berries, and they're highly nutritious, and nothing helps by increasing endocrine gland function. Especially when you're carrying to term. And you want to make sure that you're utilizing calcium and your baby's utilizing calcium. So, one, you don't get into postpartum depressions. Your baby has good electrical impulses, has good structural, connective tissue issues, all of those things. So, that's always should be number one. Number two, talking about a little baby. Cute. Really cute. You know, it's vital that we raise our children healthy. But you also got to remember, these babies are coming in genetically weak. That's the cells. Remember, cells are structure function. Cells make up the predominant part of the body, obviously. They make up all the structures, all the pipes, the tubes. Cells make up everything. So you only have what? Cells, spaces around them, interstitial, and the two fluids that occupy them, right? And a little ash, which is chemistry. Same thing with mother's milk. You break it down, you got a little ash, but you're at less than 1% proteins. So when you look at formulas on the market, and you see this, and even in formulas for adults, which when you're an older person, the one area of chemistry you don't want is protein. If you're 60 years or older, you want to stop and cut way down on proteins, or you're going to see an early grave when losing the kidneys and everything else. So you really, you're much better off, everyone, getting away from the proteins and getting into more amino acid structures. So the question would be then, how much of amino acid structure do you need as a Homo sapien? Because when you take a look at a horse and elephant, they use vegetable amino acid structures. We're more chimpanzee, we're 96% the same genetically as a primate. Damn, that's only 4% difference. So there's not going to be much difference in diet, is there? Nope. So even though you see a predominance of people feeding monkeys and stuff vegetables, they're frugivores. But formulas. I'm going to bring my formula in. I'll show you what I'm working on. We've got it here. But it sticks to the nipple too much. And we looked up this one formula, about the only formula on the market that's vegan, I guess. But it's okay. It's almond milk, homemade almond milk, which I like, and preferred is the coconut water. They got a tablespoon of unrefined organic coconut oil, but then they add spirulina. That's where I will go wrong with that. You don't need a single-celled organism to give a little infant, but what you could replace that with is a fruit blend. You know, like blueberries, blackberries, a fruit and berry blend, would be perfect to add into a formula like this, because now you're going to help your infant's neurological system. Oh man, too much partying, right? Too much working, boy. So weekend I was putting in fence and it was hot out. I was tired last night. They've got baby DHA. Oh God, you want to be careful about DHA and even all. If you're dealing in fatty acids of any type, I'm into whole foods as opposed to supplementing. The only way that formula would be helpful is you add some omegas in there. Yeah, it's anti-inflammatory, but get what's normally in the foods, because they're structurally put together to match the structure you're feeding them to. For example, a horse is not, they like fruit a little bit, like apples and stuff, but they're really, so look at alfalfa. Just something as alfalfa, which is one of my top veggies, if you will, in my greens. Because where do you get more nutrition than alfalfa? Just pump alfalfa tablets. I mean, that's what Shackley's big thing. Why did Shackley have you up to like 30 tablets a day or something of alfalfa? But there's some other oil. I don't even know what this other oil is. And then there's nutritional yeast. There's no way, and Schultz screwed up doing this too. There's no way. Very few people test strong on nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast, if you got fungus in your body, you don't want to do nutritional yeast. I mean, you don't want to add, I don't do any yeast products. You'll get your B vitamins from many other sources. And no way, I don't do no nutritional yeast. And dairy-free probiotics. So it's a crappy little formula. It's a little formula, but it's a crappy little formula. You want to see what's in mine. Blueberries, blackberries, all the fruits, coconuts, coconut milks. I've got bananas. I've got, I had to cut it down. I have to keep cutting it down and cutting it down and cutting it down and cutting it down because it's too strong. It makes this formula look like crap. But you got to find the best way. So my suggestion, until we get ours out, until you can find one, get yourself some fresh coconuts. I know here I can go down and visit some coconut trees, and I have coconut trees at my house. And so on a mama, you might want to load up on some coconuts and make yourself some fresh coconut milk. Or buy it when you can find it frozen, would probably be a little better. 'Cause anything in a can, no. Anything in a glass jar, which you don't see too many people using glass jars for coconut milk and water, it's got to be pasteurized. Well, which is worse, pasteurization or freezing? Pasteurization. So you can find something like that, but make yourself up a little bit between. But when you look at the nutritional side of coconuts, they're even more nutritious than mother's milk. So it's tough to find something that totally matches mama's milk. Really hard. Because remember, the big thing about your milk, ladies, alkaline. You want good alkaline milk. And then your baby won't get colicky and mucusy. Because acids causes mucus. Acid-forming foods are all mucus-forming foods. Mucus-forming foods are foods that have an acid hit and irritate the mucosa. They're vibrationally, and your body goes, no! I can even put milk right up here and I can feel my mucosa in my body go, like that. Funny, but it's so true.